most important thing that we can do is educate our children and support high quality teaching and teachers to come into the profession. If that's the case, why haven't we put our money where our mouth is?
Welcome everyone to another edition of Elation Communications video series on inclusive communication. I'm so excited to welcome our guest today, who will be discussing educational leadership and inclusive communication. Today we have Dr. Rodrick Lucero joining us, who is the Executive Director for Educator Preparation Programs and Certification and Professor at Texas A&M in College Station, Texas. He is also the President and CEO of the National Center for Clinical Practice in Educator Preparation. Welcome, Rod.
Great. Thank you, Jerrica. I'm really an honor to be here.
So glad to have you here. Rod is a longtime friend as well as a scholar in educator preparation. So Rod, why don't you tell us about your professional experience and work in educational equity?
Thanks, Jerrica. It's been an honor to be here, and thank you for the invitation. But it's been a blessed career, I would say. I started as a high school teacher and coach, and matriculated into the PhD programs, where I served as a professor and a director of the School of Teacher Education at Colorado State University. From there, I moved into a vice presidency in a national organization, the American Association for Colleges of Teacher Education, which is where I got to know you better, Jerrica, and in the Washington, D.C. context. So working in that national sphere was very eye-opening, of course. From there, I've worked as a consultant in the areas of special education, as well as in the area of inclusivity for all learners. Currently, I serve as a professor and the executive director of Educator Preparation Programs and Certification at Texas A&M, kind of bringing all those experiences to bear on how we prepare teachers best in this country. Certainly, the need is there to continue to diversify our teacher pool and our administrator, those who are trained to be administrators. The need is still there to diversify. A lot of efforts have happened, and we kind of do the whole one step forward, two steps back kind of thing. Still, the statistic still holds that 80% of all teachers are white and 80% of them are women. So we're in need, and as a result, we're really reaching into a teacher shortage post-COVID. We've got teacher shortages kind of all over the place, certainly in special education, but also we need more men teaching in our elementary levels. We need more women in the secondary science and math areas. And so we've got a lot of work to do.
Absolutely, Rod. And thank you so much for laying the foundation for why inclusive communication and educational equity is important to advocate for in the school system. So along that lines, could you tell us why is it important for educational leaders to implement inclusive communication in the school and workplace environment where they lead?
Thank you for that question. I think it's an important question, and it's a really important question in our current national conversation. As DEI has been vilified, as critical race theory has become a flashpoint in the media and in the political arena. The bottom line is this: regardless of what we call it, or the semantics behind it, the bottom line is our job in schools is to bring everyone together. That was Thomas Jefferson's vision, and provide access to those opportunities, regardless of what they bring, what a student might bring to the front door. Abilities and disabilities. We all have abilities and we all have disabilities. So recognizing that is really the foundation of the American educational system. We are unique because we educate 100% of our children. Now, compare that with skews from other European countries or other countries who start to striate their programs so that majority of students test out at 8th grade and go on into voc tech schools or other kinds of schooling. And those that remain in the traditional schools are only the top 20%. Well, it doesn't take a genius in statistics to understand that when you're comparing the top 20% of Norwegian students to our 100%, we're always going to finish lower. Now, that being said, I'd much rather finish lower and educate 100% of our children to whatever level they can be educated rather than just the top 20%. That's why we have the most educated populace in the world. That opportunity is because of the philosophical foundations of John Locke and Rousseau as channeled through Thomas Jefferson in the founding of our democracy. Secondly, in this conversation, I think it's important for us to realize what education is. Education is about the depth and breadth of our collective lived experiences. Anything short of that is not education, it is indoctrination. That concept must be the place where we hang our hats. That's what we do, is we expose students to what is out there in the real world. Whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not, our charge is to expose students to the realities of our world so that they can solve the problems as they move into the workforce, so they can solve the problems and face the new problems that their generation will face. If we don't do that and we indoctrinate students, we're putting them into a small piece of the pie that may not be representative of our collective real life experiences. Right now, we're in a political arena where indoctrination is in vogue. It is the style of the day. As educators, we need to be courageous and brave to ensure that every young person that comes to our doors is educated to the very best of their levels so that they can realize the dreams and be contributing active citizens of these United States. That's what democracy is. This isn't hyperbole. This is reality. Our very foundations are based on kids, young people who are well educated, who are able to have critical conversations, who are able to be empathetic and to see another side. When you have a system of indoctrination, empathy is not a value. And at that point, students don't see how somebody could be a certain other way, and they don't appreciate, nor do they respect. But when we educate, we learn the ability to be empathetic and to see, well, now I can kind of understand why you might think this way. And it's okay for you to think that way. And it's okay for me to think my way based on that broad education. And of course, genetics and the way you were raised and your culture and those kinds of things come into play. Our job in schools is to open those doors to all of those things and celebrate that mixture and learn from one another. The bottom line is we don't go into the real world isolated. We don't go into the real world in a way that is simply something we can control. We have to work with others. We have to learn how to work with others. We have to learn how to lead and know when to follow. We have to find our voice and know when to use our voice appropriately. If you don't have others that kind of check that for you, then you think you are the most powerful. There is no one on this earth that is more powerful than anyone else.
Well said, Rod. So, I thank you so much for really that key message. It's time to be brave and courageous, and essentially to implement simple things like empathy. I'd like to ask you, what should that look like as educational leaders implement this in their day-to-day work to support and promote inclusive communication towards educational equity? So maybe if you could start with defining what educational equity is, and then, what does that look like in practice?
From my point of view, educational equity is everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome to have access to the educational opportunities afforded by our country, afforded by every state in the union, every city in every state, every small community, every rural school, that everyone has access, regardless of a diagnosis that they might have in terms of a mental disability or a learning disability, regardless of their sexual orientation, regardless of their color, their past, their culture. All of those things are accepted. That's equitable inclusion. And in order for that to be successful, we also need a teaching pool that represents that. One of our biggest problems of practice right now is a statistic, and it's a well-researched statistic. 80% of all teachers are white and 80% of them are women. Boys of color do not see themselves reflected in their teaching pool. Again, there's plenty of work. That's the job and the challenge that we have ahead of us. We've done many things in this country over the last 25 years to try to change that dynamic. We've not been successful. And part of that is because we keep putting barriers up, testing barriers, financial barriers. Here at my university currently, a teacher may have to take up to 5 certification exams at $136 an exam. And if they fail, they have to pay that again and again and again. Possibly they would pay up to $4,000 in certification exam fees. Across the plaza, our engineering students need only one test, which is $175 to take, and they're going into a profession that starts them at $87,600. Well, for teachers, they're spending all this money at the front end to go into a profession that starts them at $46,000. You know, in over 28 states, I believe, and I could be wrong on the statistics, but it's somewhere close. In 28 states, a new teacher starts below the poverty level of that state. If we look at the PDK annual report for years, it has noted that the most important thing that we can do is educate our children and support high quality teaching and teachers to come into the profession. If that's the case, why haven't we put our money where our mouth is? And that is a survey of parents. So we need to start putting our money where our mouth is. And contrary to popular belief, Jerrica, I will tell you, I'm in schools all the time. What I see in schools is remarkable. It is absolutely fantastic. Students engaging with one another, helping each other. So the other part of equitable inclusion, to go to your question, is not what they know in algebra and on the tests, or learn in American history and able to write the essay about. It's about building a relationship. It's about discovering their humanity within their humanity. That's what's the most valuable part. If we can't do that and we're all testing content, there is absolutely no way for us to achieve the goals that we have for ourselves in a democratic world.
Thank you, Rod. And so in conclusion, why don't you share with us, what do you think it would take to realize a vision, as you stated, about focusing, on the humanity part of just being, just a citizen, being a leader, being a student in America? Can you talk to what you think it would take for us to better realize that as educational leaders?
So my way of thinking, it's about recognizing the humanity that we bring to the schoolhouse, both from teachers, by principals, teachers, parents, the community members that are part of that school community, and most importantly, the students. Valuing their humanity, valuing and honoring what they bring in. In the old days, we used to call that the soft science, right? How do you find joy in learning? How do you measure that? Well, when you find joy in learning, and that is just as important as knowing how to work the Pythagorean theorem. Mm-hmm. Those two things are very critical. You learn as much on the football field or on the stage or at the concert as you do within the context of your classrooms. The classrooms give you the knowledge, those co-curricular activities, and even extracurricular activities outside of school, youth groups, those kinds of things, summer camps. They teach you how to apply what you've learned in the schoolhouse. That's a thorough democratic education that allows for equitable opportunities for all.
That's wonderful, Dr. Lucero. Well, I know we've run out of time, and you've touched on so many key points. I hope we can have you back soon to delve further into these.
I'm ready to come back. So it's been an honor.
Thanks so much, Dr. Lucero, for being with us. And as we conclude, we invite our audience to stay in touch and continue to follow our work on inclusive communication. You can learn more about Elation Communication at our website, elationcommunications.com, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at Jerrica Talks, on YouTube at Elation Communications, LinkedIn at Elation-Communications, and on Facebook at Elation Comms. And until next time, we invite you to join us to become an inclusive communicator. Thank you.